Hey everybody, welcome to the Monday night, June 15th live stream for studentloanjustice.org. My name is Alan Collins, founder of Student Loan Justice. If you have any questions or comments as we go along, feel free to throw them up and I'm happy to respond to them in situ. I'd much rather have a give and take with y'all than be a talking head up here. So to those of you who are new, welcome. We're glad that you found us. We are pretty much the only citizens group actually fighting for student loan justice. Now, you might be wondering, what is student loan injustice? Well, at the core of it, it's the removal of standard consumer protections that exist for every other type of loan. You know, the founding fathers, who they themselves were being killed under debt to British banks and merchants, people like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Robert Morris, and others, they felt so strongly about avoiding a tyrannical lending regime that they called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution, not the Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself. So that should be telling you something. It is extraordinarily important to have bankruptcy protections in order to keep a lending system free and fair, I should say. So this has been taken away uniquely from student loans, and it is a huge reason for the massive problems that we're seeing with this lending system now today. So for the first 15 years of our, hey Corey, how's it going? So for the first 15, and by the way, if you have any questions or comments, just throw them on out. For the first 15 years of our existence, we were fighting very moderately and very hard, but fighting very hard for the moderate solution of simply returning bankruptcy protections to student loans as they exist for all other loans in this country. Well, it's been 15 years now, folks. Congress, and believe it, I mean, we have two good bills to fight for right now. S1414, HR 2648. These bills, if passed, would indeed return standard bankruptcy protections to student loans. But folks, I'm here to tell you, it is now a failed lending system. It's failed. 80% of all, certainly federal student loan borrowers, will never be able to repay their loans. The default rate for 2004 students is 80%. No, sorry. The default rate for 2004 students is 40%. It's actually a little higher than 40%. But 2004 students were only borrowing a third of what is being borrowed today. So the true default rate for all students walking around right now with student loans could be 80%. It's certainly 50, 60, 70%. So at what point do you have to call it? Well, I think we've reached that point now here today, particularly in light of the recent coronavirus crisis, where almost nobody is paying on their student loans right now. This economy probably isn't going to be super good for normal people, unless you're maybe a stockbroker, going forward. So come September 30th, when everybody has to start repaying their loans, at this point, I think it is a very serious question as to whether many, or maybe even any, people will happily resume paying their student loans again. I think this lending system is dead, folks. I think that we have to call it for what it is. At this point, it's a national threat. And to that end, we started a petition in March calling for the president to cancel all of these loans by executive order. You know, we see all manner of student loan cancellation plans out there, legislation, campaign proposals from Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Ilhan Omar, and others. But I am here to tell you that all of the cancellation programs that we're seeing thrown around in the media, they're all nonsense. They will not work. And, you know, we support Bernie Sanders, we support Elizabeth Warren, but having said that, what all of the programs out there that we're seeing in the press, except for ours, calls for is for Congress to raise $1 trillion, $2 trillion, give that money to the Department of Education and maybe the private lenders as well, so that they can cancel the loans. So where to begin with all the problems with this? It's a non-starter. First of all, Congress is not going to pass legislation that raises a tax that raises $1 to $2 trillion and then happily give that money to the lending system. It's just not going to happen. whatever forgiveness cancellation they end up promising will be partial. It won't be full-on forgiveness. In fact, it will be a cancellation program much like any number of cancellation programs that are already in existence, like the income-based repayment program, which you may be on, like the public service loan forgiveness program, which you may be trying for. Well, what do we know about all these cancellation programs, folks? We know for the public service loan forgiveness program, less than 1% of the people who worked at a nonprofit for 10 years had every reason to expect that their loans would be canceled. Less than 1% are actually getting their loans canceled. The vast majority, 99.2%, are being told, no, you didn't dot your I, you didn't cross your T, you were in the wrong program. Any number of reasons that, nope, they're not getting it. Well, that is par for the course. That is how the Department of Education rolls. They have no desire or intentions of canceling any loans. So whatever Congress might pass by way of loan cancellation, rest assured that whatever was good in that, it will get bureaucratized into dust by the Department of Education. So dudes, when you hear candidates and you hear members of Congress talking about their student loan cancellation proposals, rest assured they have error. It's nonsensical, not going to work. Canceling student loans by executive order, however, is bulletproof. The president can order the Secretary of Education to cancel all the loans that it owns directly tomorrow. He can do it without asking Congress, without needing any kind of congressional appropriation, without needing one dime of money from the taxpayers, and without adding one penny to the national debt. Here's what people aren't talking about, but they should be. These loans don't need to be paid for to be canceled. The taxpayer already paid for these loans many years ago. And the taxpayer, by the way, has probably recouped their investment at this point. You know, the government took over the lending system in 2010. They've been booking something like 50, 60, 70 billion dollars a year in profits. And of the $1.5 trillion outstanding in federal student loans, probably less than a third of that is actual principal. The vast majority of that debt is interest and penalties and fees baked into new principal. It's all gravy for the government. So the president could cancel these loans tomorrow. No law needs to be passed. No money needs to change hands. They just cancel the stupid loans. And it is long past time that happened, because this lending system is now a national threat. It is harming far, far, far more people than it ever helped. And we are the pioneers, folks. I'm sorry to tell you that, but in our group we have maybe 300,000 people, maybe a few more. But that is a drop in the bucket when you look at the 55 million people in the country who either have student loans or are co-signed on them. 80% of whom, as I said, that's 44 million people, will never be able to repay their loans. So that's a lot of people. That's enough to change a presidential election from a loss into a landslide and vice versa. So we have got to swing this axe that we have. We've got to flex this muscle that we have. But we are the few and the proud and the pioneers at this point. So I don't want to put any more pressure on you, but you just heard what I said, so you can't unhear it. You know, for every person in our group, there are like 1,000 people out there who don't know about us. So we've got to punch a little above our weight. We've got to pull a little bit more than our weight right now to get this thing going. So I'm very happy to say that our petition now has 300,000 signatures, nearly. And we should have 10 or 20 million. Seriously. There's no reason that we shouldn't. So what we're asking everybody to do today, we're calling this Media Monday. And if you look up, you can see our contact information and a link to our petition in the post that goes along with this video. Contact a media company and tell them that they need to report on this petition. What we are arguing for is the obvious, best, cheapest, most efficient, most expedient, and most effective way to stimulate the economy and get rid of this big government monstrosity student loan system. Hey, we have a comment here from Gordon. Hey, Gordon says, I'm listening live while the grid is up. Both Facebook and Instagram went down simultaneously earlier today. Yeah, don't get me started on Facebook. We've had a lot of connection issues lately. Gordon says, executive order is a good option. Thank you for reminding us that we already paid off said loans. That's right. That's right. And that's, Gordon goes on to say, thank you for reminding us that we already paid off said loans and that we recouped $1.22 for every dollar lent. And that's something I haven't mentioned yet here tonight, but you all should know that many years of White House budget data show clearly that the federal government has been making a profit on defaulted loans. Where a credit card company or any other type of lending company, where they're thrilled to get back 5 or 10 cents on the dollar for a defaulted loan, the federal government, in the absence of bankruptcy protections, in the absence of statutes of limitations, and in the presence of draconian collection powers and fee schedule, I might add, they have found a way to get blood from a stone. And on balance, for decades running, the federal government has been turning a tidy profit on student loans. Now, we tried to break this news in 2010, and it's kind of a long story, but the bad guys, the student loan swamp, spun the numbers so that instead of the headline reading, government profits on defaults, the headline instead read, government not losing that much money on defaults. And there's just a universe of difference between the way that headline, how the one headline is interpreted versus the other by the general public. But folks, I'm here to tell you it is true. And even if you give very generous allowances for collection costs, even still, the federal government has been profiting on student loans for many years. Gordon Wayne Watts says, pray for me to complete mission to formally request President Trump for executive order, not an easy task for mere mortals. Well, that's right, Gordon, and you might be the guy to make that happen. President Trump is going to have a tough time in this election, I think it's fair to say. Even if the economy is doing better, it's a lot of bad feelings this time around coming up against Donald Trump. And so whatever may happen between now and November, I think it's pretty fair to say that he is going to really be needing to pull a rabbit out of his hat if he wants to have a chance of winning this election. And what better way, in fact, what more conservative way could Trump gain some better standing with the electorate than to cancel the student loans of probably 45 million people? Federally owned student loans comprise about 90% of all student loan debt. There will still be some loans that remain, by the way. The older style FFLP loans will still be there. Private student loans will still be there. Perkins student loans will still be there after this executive order happens. But we are also fighting for S1414 and HR 2648. Those are two bills that will return standard bankruptcy protections to student loans. So folks, that's the one big ask that I have for you all tonight. Contact a media company. It could be CBS, it could be the Oprah Winfrey Show, it could be 60 Minutes, it could be Vice News, it could be Real Time with Bill Maher, it could be the Ellen DeGeneres Show. I don't know. Think of 1 or 10. And tell them that they need to report on this petition. It could be your local news station, which, by the way, we have a news station in Denver that is working on a story now. Thanks to everybody in the Denver area who stepped up to be interviewed for that. We are really good with the media, folks. We can do interviews all day long. We've got this great studio set up. I actually have some nice clothes, and I could shave and cut my hair and stuff and do really professional interviews on this topic. We are ready to roll. We've been featured top story on 60 Minutes. We've been featured on hour-long specials on CNBC. We've been featured on Vice News, on Fox News, on MSNBC and CNN and Chinese Central Television and Al Jazeera. We've been on public television. We've been on public radio. I could go on and on and on and on and on about all the media that we have done in the past. For us, it's very easy. We have honed We have sharpened our argument like a Japanese sword to a razor's edge. We can answer all of the tough questions for why this is a failed lending system and why the obvious, clearly needed way to solve the student loan program problem and stimulate the economy is to cancel these loans tomorrow. We can talk to conservatives, and we have. We can talk to liberals. We can talk to libertarians. We can talk to everything in between. We can talk to any media, no problem. But the way it seems to work best, if I call them and say, you should interview me about our petition, student loan justice, it just doesn't work that way. People working for a news organization, they'll be like, oh, another Yahoo called saying that we need to interview him. Yeah, right. Okay, sure. Doesn't work that way. What works is when a third party says, hey, you should really talk to this guy about this petition they have going on. It's got 300,000 signatures. They're calling for the president to cancel all student loans. And it's very intriguing. They claim that they can do it without needing any taxpayer money, without adding to the national debt. Looks really interesting. You should talk to them about that. That gives you somewhat of a chance. And I won't lie to you folks, it's a numbers game. You know, the very first piece of media that we ever got on this in 2005, 15 years ago, it took me 1 year of very persistence with a reporter named Bethany McLean of Fortune magazine. Bethany is the reporter who, by the way, broke the Enron story. So she was a big deal then. She's still a pretty big deal. She still writes. But it took me a year of diligent persistence in doing research into the topic, sending her information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and you know, in the meantime, I probably contacted 50 other news organizations during that year's time. But finally, Bethany came through with a 5-page cover story in Fortune magazine, and that very quickly led to a top story on 60 Minutes, by the way. So you've got to try, folks. You've got to. I can only do so much. You know, we've got great power in numbers at this point, but we can only flex that power when everybody out there pulls their weight and does what is needed. Right now, what is needed is media exposure about this petition. So we've already gotten some fairly good media coverage. We've gotten featured on Fox News Radio, on Minnesota Progressive Radio, on C-SPAN, which was actually just a call-in thing, but still, I still count it. Something called Status Coup with Jordan Sheraton, Status Coup, C-O-U-P, check it out, Google it, you can see it. So we've gotten a little bit of press coverage, but we need more. And we're working on something in Colorado right now, but we need more. I can be doing 25 interviews a day by phone, on Zoom. I mean, if it's something really big, I can even fly somewhere for it if I absolutely have to. So, yeah, by all means, we'll pray for you, Gordon, but I would say prayers and hope is great. It's very needed. It's critical. But what's also critical is making phone calls and doing the hard work necessary to at least give us a chance to get some media exposure and to get more people in the country aware of our petition. As I said, there are 44 million borrowers in the country right now who are freaking out about their student loans. They're losing sleep. They're either not able to make payments on their loans, they're in default, forbearance, deferment, they're delinquent, or they're paying and their balance is going up. So all of those people need to know about us, and they need to be helping along with you and everybody else, Gordon and all the people who are helping. You know, and you know, to your and our credit, I'd say on any given day, maybe 200, 250 people are actually doing stuff to help us, whether it's with the petition, whether it's with the legislation that we're pushing, S1414 and HR 2648. And so that's not bad. But dudes, I'm telling you, we need to bring it to a higher level of effort, particularly now. You know, we've got 5 months before a presidential election, folks. This is exactly the right time to be putting pressure on President Trump, on candidate Biden, on all members of the House, and many members of the Senate who are up for re-election this fall. Now is prime time. Now is the time. If you were ever going to fight with us for student loan justice, now and the next 5 months, I think will seal our fate one way or the other. So think about that. Think of, you know, this is not a wait, watch, and worry proposition. These are your loans. This is your life. This is your livelihood at stake here. And if you think that somebody else is going to carry your weight for you, well, I can tell you, and Gordon can tell you, and many others on this group can tell you, don't work that way, Jack. You got to put your own work in here on this block. You've got to help. You know, do you want to live the rest of your life under this tyrannical, oppressive, predatory debt? Do you? Ask yourself that question very seriously. And then think about what you can do to help. I've already told you what we want right now, what we need. We need the media to know about us, know about our petition. That is the one thing right now that we're asking everybody to do. It will help. You can do it in 10 minutes. What else were you going to do? Sit around, look out the window, wait, watch, and worry about your student loans? Give me a fucking break. Help out. Pitch in. Pardon my French. We've got to flex this muscle, folks. We've got to. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for tonight. I'm not convinced that we're getting a whole lot of audience tonight on this live stream because Facebook suspended my account for I don't know how long, a day or two, for overposting, apparently. I posted one thing in 2 places this time, and Facebook suspended me. So I don't get that, but whatever. Do what you can to spread the word about this live stream right here. Share it, paste a link to it. Do what you can to get it out there. But back to the first thing, folks. Last thing I'll say. Make sure someone, 10 people, media companies, media, news teams, make sure they know about this petition and do whatever you need to do to get them to report on it. It is so important. Because believe it or not, the country actually needs you on this. We're fighting not only for ourselves, but for tens or even hundreds of millions of people to follow in our footsteps. Keep that in mind. God bless. Godspeed. Peace.